Hi guys, this is John here. Today we will start with session 3, where we will look at how does the human brain learn to estimate and predict an output. And more importantly, we will understand how do we judge if the estimation or prediction done by the human is correct or not. We will understand how to calculate the accuracy of that prediction or estimation. Before we start with our process to understand how humans estimate and predict output, we will first understand the fundamental difference between identifying objects and estimating / predicting an output. We need to understand the difference between these two situations. So in today's lecture, I will discuss the differences between these two. And in the next lecture, we will start with the details of understanding how a human estimates or predicts. So fundamentally, we say that we are identifying objects when the output has a fixed number of variations. So what do we mean by fixed number of variations? Let's take an example. In session 2, we looked at the fact that Jimmy had to identify colors. Now in that case, Jimmy had to identify 3 colors: red, blue, and green. Suppose he had another competition where he had to identify animals, where he had to identify the different types of animals. So for example, a cat, a dog, a lion, a tiger. He could also have an option of identifying birds. Now birds themselves have separate, distinct number of variations, where we could have different types of birds, such as a parrot, a sparrow, a crow, or a pigeon. So as you can see here, the objects that we can identify are distinct. So whenever you have a distinct number of objects with a fixed number of variations, we classify that as an identification problem, and also called as classification, where we are classifying whether it's red, blue, or green. We are classifying the color, or we are classifying the animal, whether it's a cat, dog, lion, or tiger, or a bird. Now within birds, we are further classifying whether it's a parrot, sparrow, crow, or pigeon. So whenever we say identification or identifying, we also call it classification. So this is one specific situation. Another situation is where we estimate or predict the output. Let me take an example. Now let us say Sarah asks Jimmy, "Jimmy, can you tell me what will be today's weather like?" So now let us ask ourselves this question. Does the weather have a fixed number of variations? The answer is no, because the weather could be 25 degrees Celsius, could be 25.1, 25.2, and it has infinite number of variations. Now since it does not have a fixed number and an infinite number, it automatically turns into an estimation problem where Jimmy has to estimate the day's weather. So Jimmy might say today's weather is going to be 25.2 degrees Celsius, and at the end of the day we can check with the weather department what the weather was. Similarly, Sarah might ask Jimmy that what would be the price of wheat today. Now the price of wheat today could be any number, and it does not have a fixed number of variations. So Jimmy might estimate or predict that the price of wheat will be 100 rupees per kilo, and then Sarah can check the market value whether he is right or wrong. And the question is, how close was his answer to the actual value in the market? So the fundamental difference between identification and estimation, or in this case I will use the term classification and estimation. The fundamental difference between these two is that in classification, you have to figure out a fixed number of variations, versus in estimation or prediction, you don't have a fixed number of variations and you have to predict an actual value. Another example of the difference between classification and prediction or estimation is, let us say you look at a person and you try and guess whether this person is a boy or a girl. And a prediction would be, if you predict the age of the person. Another example is you predict whether the person is fat or not fat. Or let us say we take another example where the person is obese, very obese, or fit, and let us say ultra fit. And you try and predict the weight of the person. So in this case, where it was a boy or a girl, you had a fixed number of variations. In the case where it was the age of the person, you had unlimited number of variations, infinite. In the case where we had obese, very obese, fit, ultra fit, these are fixed number of variations, so there are fixed number of classes. Whereas the weight of the person, again you have infinite number of variations here. So another difference between classification and prediction is, with classification you have a fixed number of classes, a fixed number of outputs, whereas in prediction you typically have a value or a number to predict. This is the fundamental difference between classification and prediction or estimation, which we must understand, because when humans learn, we need to ask ourselves, am I looking at a classification problem or am I looking at a prediction or estimation problem? In session number 2, we looked at how the human mind learns how to classify, and using a confusion matrix, if you remember, or a confusion table, we are able to judge if the human is able to classify accurately or not. So I hope this distinction between classification and prediction is clear for you guys. In the next lecture, we will look at how the human brain learns to estimate, and we will also look at how to judge if the accuracy of estimation or the error or the mistake is high or low, and how to calculate that. So I hope this distinction was clear. We will look at some exercises for this. I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Thank you.